Welcome to the Manna at the Tap podcast, where we as a community seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and my role here is to guide us, offering insights and interpretations from our daily lectionary readings that provide the manna designed to nourish our spiritual growth. Today, on this seventh week after Pentecost, Sunday, July the 7th, 2024, the lectionary text is in the Gospel of Mark. We had previously spoken that the writer of the Gospel of Mark created sandwich themes, as in the story of Jairus' daughter who was sick at age 12, and the woman Jesus called a daughter who had a bleeding disorder for 12 years. Both of them were healed. Jesus told the woman it was her faith that made her whole. Faith was she had a plan of action and carried out her action plan. Jairus' daughter was healed through her father's faith. When the news came for him not to bother Jesus because the child was already dead, Jesus told him to not let his faith become fear. He was to keep believing. Today's lectionary text is the pairing of two themes. Mark chapter 6, verse 1 to 6, there is the rejection of Jesus by his hometown folk, and in Mark chapter 6, verses 7 to 13, Jesus commissions his 12 disciples to go out in pairs to the villages around to teach the people and to heal the sick. In his gospel narrative, Mark tells us Jesus traveled back and forth over the Sea of Galilee, meeting and healing people and casting out impure spirits. This was a big job. So he enlisted 12 disciples to help him accomplish his mission. The lectionary text of Mark chapter 6, verse 1 to 6, finds Jesus going to his hometown synagogue on a Sabbath, accompanied by his disciples. As it was customary for Jesus, he taught the people in the synagogue. Now, some were listening, while others were amazed, wondering, and questioning where he acquired such knowledge, wisdom, and the ability to perform miracles. It did not take long for their amazement to turn negative as they rejected him and vocalized several questions about how this simple carpenter who was raised among them, the son of Mary, had such wisdom. They knew he had not attended rabbinical school, and his brothers and sisters were still living in the community. In light of the attitude of the local people, Jesus could not do many miracles there, but he did lay his hands on a few sick people, and they were healed. Then Jesus surprised himself. He had a surprising moment. He wondered at the people's lack of faith. Now, the text does not tell us why the people in Nazareth rejected him. Maybe they thought he was coming home for a visit after his pet family went looking for him because they thought he'd gone out of his mind. And that story is in Mark chapter 3, verse 21. Maybe they were influenced by the opinion of the religious leaders who considered Jesus to be an agent for Satan. The response of the people in his hometown synagogue insulted Jesus's character. There was actually a hint of his illegitimate conception, as there's no mention of a father in the Mark translation. This caused quite a tension between Jesus, his family, and the people in his hometown. But Jesus provided an alternative assessment of himself. He aligned himself with the prophets of the Old Testament, countercultural figures who were often misunderstood and not always honored in their hometowns. The writer of Mark pairs the narrative of Jesus being rejected in his hometown with the commissioning of his 12 disciples for their first assignment and sending them out to the villages around with his authority to heal the sick. Now, in preparation for this assignment, Jesus taught the disciples about God's reign. And then he demonstrated God's healing power so they could be witnesses. And then he told them to expect rejection as part of the work they were about to do. The disciples were to take a staff and wear sandals. They were not to bring bread, a bag, money, or 2 tunics. They were to depend solely on strangers' hospitality and generosity and be hosted in homes which presented a less hostile environment than the synagogue. But they were to stay within their welcome. Rejection is a part of life, and judgment comes from those who reject the issue. Jesus told the disciples not to stay around when rejected. Instead, they would shake off the dust on their feet and leave. This would testify against those who rejected them. The disciples had a thriving local mission trip as they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. Now, as we reflect on the pairing of these two narratives, the people in his local hometown who thought they knew Jesus because of knowing his mother, brothers, and sisters, and as they continued to live in the community, then there was the opinion of the religious authorities, the crowds, the disciples, and Jesus's family members. But the writer of Mark wants us to take a deeper look. There is still a question to be answered by you and me, who we are reading the lectionary text today. And here's the question: who do you say that Jesus is?